be firing. Okay, beautiful. We're here at Gulfstream Park, sportstreamnetwork.com. Jeff DeForest, the Friday edition. That usually means that we're going to delve into some form of degeneracy, and there's no finer guy to do that with than my good friend, rising star in the industry, race caller extraordinaire, the great Pete Aiello. Peter, good to see you out here.
And also a founding member of the Degenerate Foundation.
Well, and we go way back with this sort of thing, as we actually got ourselves, I think, thrown off the payroll and the advertising logs of Hialeah Park when we were doing that show a couple of years ago, and that's how we met. And since that time, it's just been a quantum leap forward for you as your race calling career has really taken off. Tell us a little bit about how you got started, because you had the degenerate gene, at birth?
Yeah, actually, I have a picture of me at Penn National when I was 2 years old, stomping on a losing daily double ticket. I'm not sure it was my losing daily double ticket, but it definitely belonged to somebody.
Were those the first words you ever spoke? Daily double, Daddy.
No, I think my most lucid memory is Michael Lee.
Michael Lee.
The great rider in the
We referred to him with a euphemism back then, and it was far from it because he was from Jamaica, but we always called him the Chinaman, which would not necessarily be a popular phrase to use in association with anybody these days, but that was it. And yet he was of Caribbean descent.
Well, he was always of wagering descent as far as I was going.
Descent to your bankroll.
Well, when I was 5 or 6 years old, I got ice cream for school for a week if he won 3 or 4 races at Calder.
Oh, nice. All right. So this happened
the 240, it's amazing how life goes. Back then, 240 was a big mutual for me.
No doubt.
I had to give the $2 back to my father, and I kept the 40 cents for ice cream. Now, anybody who bets 240, I got to walk away from as fast as I can.
No doubt. We had one yesterday with your favorite guy, Tip Horse Universal, Luca Panici. I think it was the second race. He paid $3.40. You see Luca paying anything under $34, and suspicions immediately arise that there ought to be an investigation by the state launched immediately. But it was nice to see this guy doing well, and he's one of our favorites. And of course, people with a gambling problem, we always say, call 1-800-LUCA PANICI, and you get yourself out of a jackpot. All right, you were telling me a story, and this is Pete Aiello, ladies and gentlemen. You can hear him all over the place. TVG's a rising star there. They always like to get him on the phone. And you're one of the few guys that doesn't give a cliched analysis of the race, the upcoming race that you're about to describe. Yeah, you really get into it, and I think they love it over there.
Well, I think it's one of those things where you have to take things as they come and try to tell a different story every time, because every race is a different story, right? I mean, it's no different than any professional sporting event. You've done so many of them in your career. You just call them like you see them, and as a general rule, if you do that and you're enjoying what you're doing, that energy transfers to everybody else. At least I hope so.
All right, so what about the story now? What was it? You took your college tuition somewhere? And you had just borrowed it from the chancellor or whatever.
Yeah, well, what had happened was my college loan money had gone into my bank account, but it had not cleared the U of A bursar's office yet. So it was sitting in limbo for about 3 weeks.
Yes.
Where it was in my bank account, but technically it wasn't really my money. They could come for it at any time.
Right.
So I figured I would, make a small investment, the local wagering establishment. But this was not just any local wagering establishment. I took out all of the funds and went to the Gila County Fair in Globe, Arizona, to bet on a horse named Little X-Man, owned and trained by Bob Pledge.
Uh-huh.
There were 4 windows at the facility that were actually set up in a barn.
Nice.
You had 4-H material one week and then wagering the next. So I would go to each one of the tellers and make my wagers, because you could not make a wager of that size in one flash, or the mutual manager would want to know what was going on.
Right.
So I make the wager. I go down to the paddock and I say to the guy, I said, "Hey, Bob," I said, "Hey, listen, I'll see you in the winner's circle." He looks at me, he says, "Not here, you won't." And I said, "What are you talking about?"
The tip was no longer universal, yeah.
I said, "This horse is a mortal sin." She says, "You didn't bet on this horse, did you?"
Oh, no.
And I said, "Yeah." I said,
"This is your college tuition money."
Yeah, I said, "I bet every cent I got on him. Quit screwing around." He says, I hope you're kidding. And he starts to get real serious. I'm worried, and it's something out of a movie. And I said, "Bob," I said, "what's the deal with this horse? Is he dead lame?" He says, "No, he's doing great. Now go cancel your tickets or lose every cent you got." So, lo and behold, I won't bore the viewers with a longer story than it needs to be, but lo and behold, the horse was instructed to be second or third. He finished second in a tight win photograph. But the epilogue to the story is almost as funny as the story itself. The jockey of this particular horse was a fellow by the name of Terry Gard. And to my knowledge, and you've been around the track longer than me, so you can tell me if you've ever heard of this, he's the only jockey to ever be fined for smoking in a post parade. It's an absolute fact.
He had a cigarette?
He walked out of the jockey with a cigarette, gave it to the trainer, and says, "Here, hold this a minute," gets a leg up on the horse, and then proceeds right onto the racetrack with a cigarette. So, long story short, Terry is instructed to be second or third or not to come back.
Don't bother coming back to the barn.
Right. Yeah. So, now, the race finishes. He loses by this far. Horse gallops out. Everybody on the backside's coming back, getting unsaddled, except for little X-Man. So Bob looks at me. We're sitting together just like you and I are. He says, "What the hell is he doing?" I said, "I have no idea." Next thing you know, the jock jumps off the horse. He smacks the horse in the butt. The horse goes barreling over the outside fence and runs loose into the barn area. So he goes running after the guy. He grabs him by the shirt collar. He says, "What the heck are you doing, Terry? What the heck are you doing?" He says, "Boss, I'm just following orders. We win it, so we didn't come back." Absolutely a true story.
So you ended up getting out of it okay.
Well, I did. I canceled all my tickets. However, my friend, who used to work for the New York Racing Association, he shall remain nameless.
Yes.
He made a cold punch Quinella on the race, 2-5. And even after he was instructed that the horse was no good, he said it doesn't matter, he's going to hit the board anyway, and kept his cold punch Quinella to a cool $2.20 as he had a $1,000 one. And again, we're talking about the Gila County Fair.
Good stuff. Now, one of the fascinating things about you, Pete, and we'll get into how you got going with the race calling and how you've evolved very quickly, because you got to be in the right place at the right time. You kind of fell into something here with Gulfstream Park. They decided to go year-round, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago, and you're absolutely right. I'm not disillusioned to anything. It was definitely the right place at the right time. I was here working at Hialeah Park when they started the 2-day-a-week racing. And listen, they didn't want to bring somebody in from out of town on something they didn't know how long it would last. For a long while, it was more of a political move. They wanted to get some better revenue shares from Calder, and they were just trying to fill the gap, so to speak. But I was always of the Pete Rose moniker that don't come out of the lineup because you don't know who's going in. And when I got into lineup, I did everything I could to make sure that they didn't take me out. And knock on wood, they haven't taken me out yet.
Yeah, no, it's been great too. And I know, I remember you were calling the quarter horses over at Hialeah,
which
and
I still
doing
do.
that. Yeah, amazing. And then got into the thoroughbreds. How much different is it? Because, while it seems like, and everybody thinks they can do this, everybody that goes to the track thinks they're better than the announcer. And then when you get into it and you actually try it, it's not quite as simple as it looks.
Well, the quarter horses are just a completely different situation for me because I'm doing so many other things.
Because you're usually fully invested. No.
Well, I don't know about all that,
Yeah,
but
right.
I'm watching Tampa on the other screen. But
that's a quick flash and it's a weird angle, isn't it?
It's a bad angle, but the other thing about the quarter horses for me is I'm doing so many other things. As you know, I have some management positions at Hialeah,
Yes.
so I'm doing everything else, and I'm on the phone trying to handle different issues. So for me, announcing the races, and it's terrible to say, at Hialeah is almost an afterthought. Whereas here, it's a situation where I'm focused on what I'm doing all the time and try to do as good a job as I can because we have people here like the great Bill Badgett,
Yes.
Who's listening on a regular basis all the time, and you never know when he may turn up.
How critical are people? I mean, people look at me doing radio shows. We're out here at Gulfstream Park in the morning. Sometimes people stop by and they say, you make it look easy. But you're always monitoring stuff in your head. If you're going to be any good at this, I think you have to. Do you find yourself doing that during the course of a race? You say something. Obviously, you can't go back over a mistake. You don't have time. The thing takes a minute and change. But how do you approach it from that standpoint?
Well, before we get into the Mutual Admiration Society here, I just want to tell you that having done some telecasts with you both in the video realm and in the radio realm, you, sir, are a man that are always 2 or 3 steps ahead, even for a guy like me who thinks I know what I'm doing. I'm always, I'm the proverbial horse that stumbles at the gate when I'm with you because I'm trying to catch up and try to at least stay alongside of where you are. But to answer your question, when I'm announcing a race and I'm saying who's third, I'm always instinctively looking at who's fifth because if I don't know who's fifth, I have to figure out really, really quick. So I'm always trying to stay a step ahead of myself in that regard.
How did the experience help you? Because obviously the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and maybe you get into a place where you feel very relaxed and confident in your style. There are always going to be critics, especially at the racetrack, maybe even from inside the track. But how do you deal with that? Because you can't do this sort of thing effectively, any kind of creative verbalization, especially in a short span like you have to do a race, and takes a lot of memorization also. But you can't do it if you're worried about, oh, geez, so-and-so is going to hate this.
Yeah, well, I try to, I've been here now 3 years, so I kind of have a gauge of what the extent of my creative license is and what I'm supposed to say and what I'm certainly not supposed to say. But a lot of that, although I guess I am talking to you, so, the filter level is probably a little bit lower, as it were, when we're talking to you.
I like an entertainer race call. That's why I think you're one of the common guys. I mean, we saw that right from the start because, one of the things that you have that I think it would be absolutely essential, although maybe you could do it without having this passion for the game that you have. You really feel it. You know the horses. You know the breeding. You study this stuff. You can anticipate really well. And I would think that these are important catalysts to being able to call a race well.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, it is one of those situations where, as you know, and as we, affectionately tease each other, we are degenerates and we eat, sleep, and breathe horse racing.
Degenerates, I think, would be the qualifying word there, yeah. Wow. But, you can't get it. If you like this kind of action, you love it. And then the great thing about what you're doing, Pete Aiello, and we're talking to a race caller here at Gulfstream Park and Hialeah Park, and probably I think it's only a matter of time before, isn't Denman due to retire? I mean, I don't know what your ambitions are in that regard. Obviously, the statement would be, I'm very happy here, and I would never consider leaving, as long as they'll have me. But and this is an illustrious place to call races.
Well, I'm a South Florida guy, too, I'm sure that some of the viewers aren't aware of this, but I am sitting next to racing royalty, even in Mr. DeForest, not solely from his parimutuel success, but there was a time where the Racing Report replay show on the Sunshine Network, 6:30 each and every race day, hosted by yours truly, Jeff DeForest. So,
and I loved it. I love doing it because I love being around the track about what could be better here. I'm here from like 5:30 in the morning this morning, and sometimes you don't really feel it. You got to get a little bit of a push going to get yourself, even though you're entertaining people. And yet, I look around, I say, what could be better? If I had dreamt this up 40 years ago, that I'd be going to a racetrack to do a morning drive radio show or anything for that matter, and get paid to do it, I would have thought I had died and gone to heaven.
Well, and it's one of those situations, I really hate to sound cliche, it's not what I like to do, but in this particular situation, it's applicable. I never thought that working at Gulfstream Park was ever attainable for me. I always set my sights a little bit lower than that, and in my opinion, if you're playing, I always use the baseball. I always use the baseball analogy. I'm completely content to be playing Double-A as long as I'm very good at Double-A.
Yeah.
You never thought you'd be brought to the major leagues, and certainly not in the level that I have, so I'm certainly appreciative for everything that's happened and everybody who's helped me along the way, because I have worked at the Gila County Fairs of the world and also at a facility which, for trivia here, I know you're big on the trivia challenges. Can you name the only North American facility to run horses at night with no lights?
Horses at night with no lights. I cannot.
The correct answer to that question is Evergreen Park in Grand Prairie, Alberta, Canada, where it's so far north it doesn't get dark until 2 in the morning. So not only
You've been there.
I've worked there. Not only can you enjoy a nice quality evening at the races, if you're a management official, you can play golf after the races.
I think what's great about that is you're of the same religious belief that I have, which is if there's simulcasting in hell, so what's wrong with a little heat? We'll be able to, if I could do that into perpetuity, I would be more than happy. Now, one of the things that happened to me a long time ago, along the lines of your desperate, degenerate story about almost spending your mom's tuition money and getting shut out of college for, I don't know what semester that was, but I would imagine it was past your first freshman.
It was actually senior year.
Senior year, yeah. That's usually when you had harbored those kind of thoughts. But I remember being in Vegas, and I was getting crushed like a grape at a time where really the money wasn't flowing as freely in my broadcasting career, and it was mostly flowing to my bookmaker, Larry the Lip Lipschitz. So, you're thinking, all right, get off my back already, Lipschitz. Could you turn off the juice for a week or something? So I'm in Vegas, getting crushed, and then on top of that, I'm with a girl, and she's getting crushed. So now I got a double just annihilation there in the bankroll, and I'm trying to get out. I got about $100 left, and I go all in on a race at the Pomona Fair, which I had a natural affinity for because I used to do some reporting out there at the Pomona Fair when I was a newspaper writer in Ontario, California. And
I got a great
it was
story
great. The
for you
bull
about
ring, yeah. We had Francisco Mena was the king of the bull ring back then. He used to win virtually every race at 3-5, and then later on there were others. I guess Martin Pedrosa.
Martin Pedrosa and David Flores come to mind for me.
Yeah, Pedrosa was always great there, but he was always on a 1-2 shot. And let's face it, these horses weren't necessarily of the most sound body and mind that were running at the Pomona Fair. So I dump all my money, and I'm just going off the board. I don't have a form or anything, and I realize, all right, this is it. It's all in. If it comes 1-2 or whatever my combination was, then I'm out for the year. And anything else, and I'm not going to have cab fare to get to the airport. And I can't tell the girl I'm with that because she thinks I'm some high roller. You're on the radio and TV. So sure enough, I look at the gate, and this would be worse than, and that was one of the things on the show Fear Factor that I had put in to submit that this would be a thing I feared the most, and that would be a rider change at the gate from Lafitte Pink Eye to Doty Dice. They announce as they're going in, you're like, where? Go, hey, cancel these. Right? You got all the tickets in your hand. So I look up, and much to my amazement, I'm looking, and the horses have like funny shaped ears. And sure enough, it was a mule race. And they were off. I don't have time to cancel the tickets. This is my last gasp desperation bet of the century, and they're all over the place. But you really embraced the mules.
I was trying to figure out how this segue was going to work.
No, but this is your thing. You're all excited about like mule racing opening up today.
Yeah, today is one of the best days of the year if you're a fan of mule racing. It's the opening of the Humboldt County Fair in Ferndale, California, where you can wager on not one but two races on a daily basis that are for the mules, and the only time of the year where you can get mules running around a turn.
The mules run around a turn in this? I mean, isn't it like, though, when they have the jockeys ride on ostriches or something? It seems that way, the helter-skelter nature of the way the race is contested.
The thing about it is it's just like any...
And they're stubborn animals, too.
Well, the thing about it is it's just like any competition. You know, everyone laughs, the mules, what are you doing? But here's the thing about it, right? So if you're following the NFL, you know a lot about the NFL, you know a lot about the players, you know a lot about the tendencies. With the mules, it's very easy to become an expert because there's only 80 or 90 of them. Yeah. So you know who's good, you know who's bad.
And there's like a secretariat of mules, is there?
Actually, there's two. There's actually two full sisters, Hot Ticket and Red Ticket. Hot Ticket, the elder of the two, she's now 13. She was a winner 2 weeks ago against her sister Red Ticket. Hot Ticket won 52 races so far in her career. 52
races. 13. Now, how long does a mule? What's the lifespan on a mule?
16.
16 as
Bar
a racer?
Yeah, Bar JF party girl.
And is there like one guy that's the Bob Baffert of mule racing in terms of a trainer?
Well, there's not so much a trainer as much as there's an owner that is the Ahmed Zayat of the mules, which is Mr. Dave Wood.
And why? How did Dave Wood? By what warped connection did he, get into this? I mean, was this a Jared Fogle type of thing? Where,
I think he actually, everyone here is watching this and going, these two guys are insane. They can't possibly be serious. And yet I can look at the camera and be completely serious.
I love your excitement about the mule racing. This is the thing that fascinates me because it's an element of degeneracy that even the most the people that are bordering on criminally insane probably haven't explored fully, and you have.
Yeah, well, you get breeding plays, and Dave Wood is a prolific racing mule breeder.
Okay,
and he has a thoroughbred mare named Hold All Tickets. She was a $2,500 claimer. Hold All Tickets.
Hold All Tickets, yeah, great name for a mule.
So we have the prodigy of Hold All Tickets, or the aforementioned Hot Ticket. We have Red Ticket, we have Lotto Ticket, we have Lucky Ticket, and then the most recent model, who, true to form, is very, very good as well. He has no ticket at all. His name is Cowboy Way.
So it's kind of like the Hanover line in harness racing, betting the jugheads. All right, so, and this takes place today. And now, will you be riveted to a simulcast somewhere, or can we get this?
Fortunately, I can enjoy the mule races because that it's actually first post time today is 6:07, and that's a full 8 minutes before the final race here at Gulfstream today.
So you get done here with your final call, and then straight downstairs.
No downstairs.
Gargle with some donkey urine, and start handicapping them. I mean, you have to be in the mindset of the beast.
Well, I've already got it all nailed. I mean, we want to give out cold punch doubles. We can do that, but.
Yeah, no, you do. Okay, so you have it. I don't know if you want to make a bold prediction here. The people on sportstreamnetwork.com tend to be, a lot of them are right now confined in institutions, which is the reason they found us. They're not allowed to get up.
Maybe we can get Mr. Lipschitz to take some action.
Yeah. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Louis and his brother Larry, they've been fleecing me my entire life, and Larry's really the evil one. Louis has like a soft spot, like a lot of bookmakers and people that are in collections. He really does have a small soft spot in his heart. All right, so let me ask you this: how do you prepare for today? You're getting ready to go to work here.
Well,
Gotta make some announcements. Do you do the anthem also? I know you do it highly. I think you also sing the anthem.
No, I can't say as I do that. I have to face for radio, as everybody who's been watching this telecast is certainly aware of by now.
But a rising TV star. I mean, surprisingly, an international acclaim. They love you over there at TVG. Every time they get you on, they're like happy because you're not giving the usual stiff analysis of what's happening on that day's card.
There's certainly some truth to that. You try to have fun with it, and I think a lot of those guys that are working at TVG, like Matt Carruthers or Todd Schrupp, you had to have worked with Todd Schrupp.
Schruppy is my man, yeah. I mean, he can't pick his nose. I mean, we love him, and with apologies, Todd, I'm sorry. But you talk about the universal burial pick, he would be the first guy to give you that.
Do I get to tell a funny Todd Schrupp story before I go today?
Absolutely.
All right, now this is third-party information, but it's absolutely a fact. Todd Schrupp was working, as you well know, at Calder.
Handicapping races.
Yeah.
And in other capacities.
Yeah, and one of those other capacities was that he was in charge of calling the result line. Back in the day before the internet, you'd call 1-900.
That's how Miramati got his start.
I need a winner, and you'd get the results for Calder. So Randy Soth, who was the GM at Hialeah Park, was the GM at Calder at the time, and he would periodically check up on the results. So one day, it's after the 7th race, and he calls the result line, and Todd Schrupp's voice is, the results for today's 2nd race at Calder. And he's, wait a minute, we're on the 7th, where did he go? So he goes and hunts, and the first place he goes, and this is an absolute fact, the first place he goes is the check cashing window. Has Todd been here?
Yes.
They said, yes, he has. He was here about 2 hours ago. Look on the 3rd floor. So he goes to the 3rd floor, and now mind you, this guy's on the clock. And there's Todd standing in a group of degenerates watching a race at Aqueduct or Belmont.
Screaming his lungs out. Yeah.
Come on with the 6. Come on with the 6. Come on with the 6.
You got it, baby.
So now, wait a minute. Now, Randy, being the hilarious individual that he is, comes walking up behind Todd, right in his ear. I mean, the most irritating thing you could ever do to somebody who's betting a race is to stand behind him and yell. Yeah. And he's screaming, "Get this 5 up! Get this 5 up!"
He had him too?
No, the 5 is surging at the 6.
Yes.
So he get this 5 up, and Todd's screaming. He's rooting against him. So they come to the finish, and the 5 nails the 6 on the wire, and Todd is furious. He turns around, "Hey, buddy, what's your?" "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. So."
Classic. Not that we would ever be inclined to get a new jackpot like that. That's the old thing about, the guy, there used to be a couple of shows on this where the guy's doing the talk show, and he's like one of these guys that all women are in love with because he gives out like Dr. Fillion-type advice. And then, unfortunately for him, the producer sabotages him and leaves the mic on during the break when he's saying, "I hate all of those flaming..." And, he's using some derogatory terminology in reference to women, and now, that goes out over the air, and the rest,
Now it's your turn for an anecdote, because I have to know, anybody in the broadcasting field, that is the most petrifying experience on the planet, when you either, by mistake, leave your mic on, or, in a lot of cases, the video crew forget to click your mic off.
Witness my guys from sportstreamnetwork.com.
Now, you have to have a good anecdote about you being on TV
I
or radio.
I have a good one. It wasn't actually me that was guilty of the... verbal, what would you say?
Crime.
Indiscretion.
Yeah.
But I was doing a boxing match. I was calling a live fight out in North Dakota. Bismarck. It was actually Minot, North Dakota. There was a fighter at the time. He was an Olympic champion. His name was Virgil Hill. He went on to win the light heavyweight championship, and his hometown was in Bismarck, so he liked to fight locally, and he would fight various events in Bismarck and Minot. So I'm only on my 2nd time working with these guys. Just gotten a call. I love calling boxing, and this was a big step up for me, like an incremental step up in the hierarchy of boxing callers, of which there are very few, like race announcers. How many guys do you really see doing boxing play-by-play? Maybe a handful at any given time. There are maybe 10, 15, 20 guys doing this in circulation. So I really wanted to take that stepping stone and be one of them. And we were working for, can I use some spicy language here? Kind of a prick director who was, not particularly amused by any kind of comedy approach to doing anything. So, no, you certainly wouldn't. Yeah, you wouldn't be held accountable, Joey, under that, banner. But so I was working with a guy named Pedro who was out of San Francisco. He was a boxing writer, and he had not had a lot of experience in TV. And they told us, they said, look, this is the beginning of the era of the satellite dish feeds, where people all over now could suddenly see the stuff that wasn't actually airing on the show. So sure enough, see, that's a typical prick director. Just knocks it right off the air on his way to have a smoke. And leaves us hanging. So anyway, they told us specifically, listen, during the breaks, don't say anything because you might say something that you regret.
Yeah.
All right. So this guy, says something along the lines of that N-word can really fight. And the calls are flooding the truck from all over the world. Like, guys are calling from Istanbul. They're calling from remote regions of the French wine country. They're calling from Switzerland. Roger Federer's on the phone. I mean, and they're all saying, I can't believe this guy said that. And coming out of the booth screaming. And with a piece of piano wire, he put it right around the guy's neck and took him off the show. And that was it. So, yeah, you got to be careful. You never know when the mic is live. And usually it would be me talking about somebody that was, say, higher up in the employment cycle than I am, like somebody that I'm directly, answering to, and you would say something not particularly flattering about a program director, and unfortunately that would go out over the air as they were driving to the station, and it'd be ugly. But yeah, now you can't say. I mean, you deal with this. You have to be careful about what you say. Maybe you have a feeling a horse is going to win, but you don't necessarily want to jump to that conclusion because all kinds of strange things happen in that final 16th. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where, you almost, when you're making a statement like that, you have to stay with it. And one of those things that I do is if I'm thinking the horse is going to get up, I got to, A, be darn sure he's going to get there.
Yes.
And B, don't waffle and say, oh, maybe he won't get there. You got to stay with it and stay fluid. So I have had a similar experience to you, actually.
Yes.
Where the microphone was off for all of the simulcast network and all of the on-track patrons. However, if you were watching at home on the internet, at no point was the microphone off. And
no.
Yes, oh no is correct. As anyone who's ever been in the booth with me at any facility I've ever worked,
right?
The color.
Do you get carried away a little bit?
Oh yeah. Well, as you touched on, I'm watching other races,
right.
And there's commentary that goes along. with it.
Yes, of course.
And I had a friend to send me a text message. Why did you just call that guy a blank? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about.
Sorry, Mr. Ritvo. I didn't mean to imply for a second.
It was actually we were all
a horse, a jockey.
No, jockeys. We're only speaking to jockeys. And so I said, you can't hear what I'm saying, only to get a text message from him. You can't hear what I'm saying. And he would repeat everything I said, only for me to realize that,
no.
So then I was actually, it was funny, I was doing silent apologies.
Yes.
I was apologizing with the silent crew, not knowing if any of them can actually hear anything I'm saying, but feeling the need to apologize anyway.
Yeah. Now, what about photo finishes? I mean, one of the things I like, mark of a good announcer, is you could say too close to call or whatever, and maybe it is too close to call, but you have an instinct as to who won. You become a pretty good judge of photos, and even if it's a nose hair, you have an idea. Do you deliberately say one horse's name first in the order that you think they actually finished in, or do you avoid that altogether?
No, I do. I do that, and the one thing I will say...
Because that was always an indicator, like you would say, he called, San Luis Obispo first.
Well, I would say something to the effect of it's a photo for third, Billy Badgett over Jeff DeForest. That means that it's a photo, but that Billy beat Jeff DeForest, But one of the things that I do, and toot, I don't do much of it, but I'll toot my own horn here. If I say it's too close to call, it's a millimeter either way, because I'm not bashful about taking the shot.
How's the angle now? What are the difficulties? Various positions, not all tracks.
We have our first finish line here, and in those races, that angle is brutal. So those races,
it's brutal for the fans too, because the first time it happens, you're like, what? I lost.
Yeah, and so
they all hear us yelling, "Wire!" And then it's that same piano wire around your neck. It's like, wait a minute, they can't be finished yet. The horse was going to win by 5.
Well, the main finish line's all right, but the first finish line, you definitely got to be on your toes and remember that it's a first finish line. I actually had that happen.
Now, what does that come up in? What distance race?
4.5 furlongs and a mile and a 16th. We use the first
mile and a 16th first finish line. Okay, and it is confusing for the fans.
Fortunately, the only time that I ever had since I've been here at Gulfstream, I had one time where I forgot it was a first finish line race.
Yeah.
But the good news is that the horse who won the race was 7 or 8 in front.
Beautiful.
And I was doing one of these ode to the winners. He's a razor sharp winner, and he's on his way to New Jersey. I think it was actually Wildcat Red. And the good news is that everybody else just thought that I ran overtime. And by the time I realized what was going on, the guy's standing up on him. I'm like, okay, I can stop this now. So,
more difficult to call, small field or a huge field?
Small field by far, because you, especially for me, because you have so much dead air time. And if as we've touched on this entire
As
program.
they hit the turn.
As we've touched on this entire program, if you give you or me any dead air,
Yeah.
it's going to be not dead for long.
No, I don't like it. I mean, I think, part of the thing is you got to keep the ball in the air. You hear some guys on the air, and maybe you get accused of whatever, talking too fast. Why don't you slow it down a notch? And sometimes I have to remind myself to do that. But in general, I mean, you don't want to hear long dead spots.
Yeah.
And even when you're listening to a race, I mean, part of it,
Well,
do you feel like you have to infuse some of the excitement into it in the call, or does it just take care of itself?
That's a complicated question because as a fan, one of the things I hate the most is false excitement.
Yeah.
So if a horse is 8 in front, I'm not going to say he's trying to hold on.
Yeah.
I'll wrap the race up. I may give some sort of sharp accolade to keep the excitement flowing, but
exuding class as they hit the wire.
Something like that,
Yes.
Mr. Denman. Yes, indeed. Or as one of my catchphrases, I guess, as it was, is bids the field a pleasant good afternoon.
I like that. No, that's good. I mean,
Or I've also used the one that during football season, which is coming up, he puts the knee down and runs out the clock.
oh, that's beautiful. Are you kidding me? I mean, and the response has to be good because you're looking for a little creativity in this stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the names usually.
If you're
can help
winning,
you.
you're happy no matter what the guy says.
Here's a funny story about I always get asked about the names, and for me, some of the best names or references that nobody gets.
Yes. Well,
there
that's
was
my whole career is based on that. I think you just pegged it. No wonder the program director hates me at the station.
And one of the things about it was there was a horse named Mr. Allnut that ran in Cincinnati.
Mr. Allnut, all right.
Now, that may be obscure to some folks, but if you're a fan of the great movie The African Queen, you'll realize that Mr. Allnut is the Humphrey Bogart character in The African Queen.
Okay.
Clearly, that was where the name came from. So it was not even something where I did anything over the top. It was just very coy. But the horse, was absolutely awful. Retired a maiden. Trainer couldn't train Lassie to bark kind of situation. And the horse, floored it in reversed about as fast as you can floor it at the half-mile pole. So at the half-mile pole, I said, and it's 6 lengths back to Mr. Allnut, he's completely out of steam. And it was just something that nobody really got, except for me and the trainer, who proceeded to call me and say, I've never been so entertained to lose a race in my life. Now, back to creative license. You got me on a little bit of a roll here.
I'm just watching the replay of Mustang Island, who I should have just hammered yesterday, although starting to already show signs.
I was just going to say it was
backwards.
off an extended vacation. Now,
in honor of the Mustang, my girl. Yeah.
Well, here's one of those things where you can't say that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? So, a friend of mine, this is in Cincinnati, where I had pretty much carte blanche, whatever I wanted to say, minus swear words I could say. And he would tease me all the time. And one of the things that he was a huge Cardinal fan. Well, as a Cincinnati Red fan, there's nothing worse in the world than Cardinal fans.
Right, for sure.
Especially obnoxious ones.
Yes.
So he ran a horse one day. He was actually from St. Louis, so he would ship in from Fairmount. And he ran a horse one day that was 5 in front at the 8th pole and got the proverbial wobbles. Right?
Uh-huh.
So as they came to the finish, I said, and it's act like a lion. I said, finishing like the Cardinals in September.
Classic, yeah.
And it was one of those things where that was one of the few times where the man management called me, Pete, you can't say stuff like that. I said, just wait a minute. He called me. He was laughing so hard I couldn't even understand what he was saying. And to this day, if we were to call him right now, he will tell you that is the only race replay that he has in his repertoire, the only race replay that he has where he bought the race replay and lost.
The great Dave Joseph in the background there. Unbelievable. All right, we got to take a break. I'll let you get to work, Pete. Just an outstanding job. A pleasure catching up with you. And, of course, resurrecting the old fun that we had at Hialeah when we were doing that show. The director was a little strange there. Did you ever get paid? Nothing.
No. Right? What is he doing now? Is he moving back to his political correspondence?
I think he's waiting for an appeals court to make a ruling on some incarceration. That seemed destined in his future anyway.
It's the only time I've ever had an umbrella used as a sunscreen.
Yeah, Pete, a pleasure, my friend. Congratulations on all your successes.
Lot, Jeff.
It's
Good
always
to be
a pleasure. We'll come back, finish things off. A little football conversation coming up next on sportstreamnetwork.com. I'm Jeff DeForest, live here at the beautiful Silk Simulcasting Parlor. It's like you died and went to heaven at Gulfstream Park. We'll be back in a moment. Well done, my friend.
Good
You're
timing.
brilliant on
Good
this.
timing.
Brilliant, yes, of course. You ready to go? Getting some direction. There you go. Welcome back to the show. Be with you a few more minutes. Has some thoughts on the NFL preseason that kind of were derived from my radio show this morning. I had a really good time being out here at Gulfstream Park. Great catching up with Pete Aiello. Watch for that name. You'll see him if you're a horse racing fan. Obviously, you're familiar with his work. Real talented guy. Has risen up from literally the even subterranean to the grassroots, and now finds himself in a spot that he only could have dreamt of at a very young age, and ticketed for great stardom in the future. And you could see just a great storyteller and a guy that's got a bright future in this communications business. Football last night. I gave out my Stone Lock of the Century on the show yesterday, and sure enough, it won. So what have you done for me lately would be the question. Some thoughts on that game, though. It was kind of comical to watch, as the big story yesterday actually came from the game that was not televised nationally, and that was the Washington Redskins and what happened with RG3. And he had kind of popped off. I don't know that I would condemn him for what he had to say. The media was making a big deal out of it. They asked him, hey, do you still think you could be the best quarterback in the league? And he said something along the lines of, yeah, well, I am the best quarterback in the league. At least I have to think so. And he qualified this very humbly so. And in reality, his statement was more or less a cliche. But the media only took one part of it. They put it up on social media. It was on Twitter. It was all over the place, Facebook. RG3 thinks he's the best quarterback in the world. Now the background on his story is Dan Snyder, a maniacal, manipulative, and intruding owner, a guy that if he just stayed out of it and put up the money, he'd probably be far better off today. But they were sold like a lot of people were when RG3 was chucking a rock for Baylor, running all over the place, winning championship games, winning the Heisman Trophy. There was actually a sentiment at the time that he may be better than Andrew Luck, who was drafted number 1 in that draft by probably the luckiest team on the planet when it comes to quarterbacks, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. So RG3 gets in there number 2, shows signs that maybe he's actually going to reach these great heights that were predicted for him in his rookie season. And the knock was, well, he gets hurt all the time. He's not reliable. He can't play this style in the NFL. And if he does, essentially he's going to be a victim of self-sabotage. It's like committing professional suicide. So, yeah, he gets whacked. He's out. Never really comes back to the same level of play he exhibited as a rookie. And now he's claiming, according to some people, that he's the best quarterback in the world. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Jay Gruden hates this guy. Doesn't want anything to do with him. At least that's the impression you get. And it was fostered last night and exacerbated by the way that he was employed in a preseason game. This is a meaningless practice. If they went out on the field and practiced just amongst themselves, that's how much significance these preseason games really have. They don't count. Doesn't matter what the score is. If you lost 49-3 all 4 preseason games, you still have every right to go out there and think that you can win the Super Bowl. So RG3 is in there, and the Washington Redskins offensive line is as suspect right now as people's opinion of the name of the team. Which, by the way, I mean, that has to offend some people, I would imagine. If it was like the New York Jews, would people be upset about it? Maybe they shouldn't be, but I would imagine the NFL would immediately make a name change because, most of the companies that are sponsoring the National Football League are probably being run, some of them anyway, by guys that would be offended to have a team in the league called the New York Jews. If it was the New York Negroes, for example, I would imagine people would be raising arms in the air and saying, you can't have this. This is not something that we can have on the name of a football team, a professional franchise printed in the paper. So Redskins, you would think, ultimately would be as offensive as maybe those two names are. If you happen to be a Native American, you really want to be depicted as some kind of wild savage throwing tomahawks and scalping squaws and, turning covered wagons upside down. That's the image you get when you hear Redskin from the old Western movies. So I could see where that be an issue. They have bigger fish to fry with this. But as you look at it, here's RG3. He's on the field. The Redskins have been a shambles for a long time. Jay Gruden wants to see this guy on the bench, relegated there forever, and he has them in behind maybe the worst offensive line. This would have been like F-Troop going against Cochise. This offensive line that they had out there on the field just wasn't going to happen. You had Agarn at left tackle and, just couldn't get it done. So this guy's getting killed. He's getting absolutely annihilated, and Gruden decides, let's send him back out there, to the point where he actually did. He ended up leaving the field, speaking in Hebrew as he was answering questions. That's how bad his head was. And you're looking at that and thinking to yourself, that's really a disgrace. That should never happen in the preseason. The other story, and we gave you the game, and I was kind of surprised by this because Johnny Manziel, as you look at him, you're thinking, this can't be an NFL quarterback. I don't know that you can play the position there. There was a guy many years ago involved in a great quarterback debate for the then Los Angeles Rams, Pat Hayden, now the athletic director at USC. And on the Rams roster was just a behemoth of a guy who had a rocket for an arm named James Harris. And this was when racial considerations probably intervened, and you had the reluctance on the part of the Rams, in a lot of people's opinion, to play a black quarterback. So they chose Hayden, who was diminutive. They like to describe him in that fashion. And he literally couldn't see over the offensive linemen that were in front of him. They was throwing balls. They looked like they were going to invoke the infield fly roll on some of his passes. That was just to get enough trajectory. It's kind of like hitting out of those sand traps at the British Open where you need a rope ladder to climb out. So anyway, Hayden kind of set the tone that maybe having a really small quarterback is not a good idea. The exception might be Drew Brees. We saw this, afflict the Detmers for so many years. They just were never any good because, frankly, they were too small. So a lot of people think that about Johnny Manziel. And he's running around last night for the Cleveland Browns. And they're resting their hopes. These poor Browns fans, they came out and filled the stadium thinking that they had the real deal in Josh McCown, who McCown sounds very much like clown. And all you have to think about is he was the guy that they had rested their hopes on in Tampa last year. And even Joey would tell you Tampa won 2 games. There was a reason that they were at the bottom of the heap there and picked number 1 and got Jameis Winston, because whoever they had at quarterback absolutely stunk last year. That guy was McCown. Browns fans turn up. They're hoping he's the Messiah. There's no chance. And now the underriding current that's going on is people are looking at little Johnny Manziel and starting to think maybe this rehab worked. Maybe the kid can play. And he showed some of that in the ballgame last night. So that was a heck of a lot of fun. A lot of football over the weekend. We're going to join you again next week here on sportstreamnetwork.com. We're coming to you live from beautiful Gulfstream Park. Place starting to fill up. You can kind of smell the aroma of horsehide in the air, and that's always a good thing. That means we're getting close to post time. A lot of great simulcasting going on. Sire Stakes next weekend here at Gulfstream Park. Your chance to participate in a lot of great events and see some promising young 2-year-olds in action, and also 3-year-olds now as they've expanded the series. So for everybody around here at Gulfstream Park, Jory and Rick, who handled the show production today and schlepped all the way down here from the beautiful city of Boca Raton, where, as we know, the county slogan is it fresh? Right? How many times do you hear that? All right, we'll see you.
I would have schlepped in all day.
Perfect. All right, have fun, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next week on sportstreamnetwork.com.